Back everyone. The iPhone SE third generation, as most of you know, ended up coming out, so let's go and do a camera comparison between that and the iPhone SE second generation. Now, luckily for you, there's really not too many differences as I could tell before from an iPhone SE 3 to an iPhone SE 2. And I do think after this quick camera comparison, I'm testing photos and everything, you'll probably see the same thing. Now, they both have at a high level pretty much the same exact camera setup. The main things that could be different is some image, optimizations with that Apple A15 Bionic chip. But other than that, they're going to realistically have the same exact camera setup. 4K at 60 on the back, 1080p on the front, portrait mode on both. Other than that, exactly the same type of camera. And I was expecting Apple to bring cinematic mode or something to the SE3. They did not do that. So there's even less capability there in the first place. So the way this camera comparison worked, I went into the same exact lighting conditions, took the same exact photos, nothing crazy, just wanted to kind of get a glimpse of how these photos kind of performed at the same level. And again, tap to focus on all, same exact time I took these photos at, and that is pretty much it. So these first sets of photos, as you can see, all of my iPhone SE3 photos will be on the left, my iPhone SE2 photos will be on the right, and you can probably see that based off the little things that I have in the corners right here. So wherever the corners are, you can see what photos we have. In this specific photo, nothing crazy, I just wanted to take it of whatever this was, this little pot of whatever this was, and genuinely, I couldn't tell the difference. They look almost like the exact same photo, and you may have even thought these were the exact same photos I took on both. You can see, I guess there's a little bit of a difference with the way this one is angled, but I'm looking at every single little thing I can think of. And the only thing that I could even possibly see is that quite potentially I don't even know how I would describe this, but the coloring on the iPhone SE3 looks a little bit darker here, but the color does seem to be a little bit more darkened, I think is the best way to describe it, than the iPhone SE3. But even if I look at like the top left corner, for example, almost the same exact thing. There's really not a lot of differences. There's not more of a bokeh effect on either one, and the colors look almost identically the same. So if anything, actually, the iPhone SE3 kind of brightened this up a little bit, which kind of looks nice. But if I had to look at both photos, I probably wouldn't be able to tell that big of a difference, to be honest. Now this next photo, I almost see the exact same thing as well. Now I kind of zoomed out a little bit more on the iPhone SE3. Like I mentioned, exact same lenses as well. So no ultra-wide sensor, no telephoto lens on either one of these. And when I look at both of these, I think they're exactly the same exact thing as well. Now let's break it down a little bit more. So we have the leaf in the center. They both look almost identical. If I go and zoom into like in this specific portion here, if I zoom into this portion, again, almost the same thing. I'm trying to look at differences. It looks to me that this one looks a little bit more darkened. This one looks like it brightened up a little bit, which could be a little bit more of like, a good feature, but you kind of really have to look at it. If you look at the water droplets here, one thing I can notice is that it does look a little bit darker or a little bit sharpened, as I mentioned before, on the iPhone SE3. So this could be kind of an advantage there, but the background looks identically the same. There's like absolutely no difference there. I think maybe this specific portion here looks a little bit darker, maybe not darker, but like a little bit more bokeh, like a little blurrier, but even then I don't think it's that big of a deal. If you make your way over to this specific edge here, if I make my way to this edge here, again, almost the exact same thing. These are almost identical. Looks a little bit more blurrier here, but even that, I don't even think it's that big of a deal, to be completely honest. So in terms of this photo, it's a great photo. I like it a lot. Unfortunately, I think they look way too similar for, in my opinion. Now, this next photo was of a darker setting. I wanted to kind of go in a lower light condition and kind of see what these would kind of look like. And again, at a high level bird's eye view, almost exactly the same. I can't really tell that big of a difference. If I go and start zooming into these specific photos here, you can kind of see, I don't really see a big difference either. I don't really see it, to be honest. It looks a little bit more, honestly, I can't even tell that big of a difference. So before I start spewing some random stuff, I just genuinely cannot tell that big of a difference here. Hopping out of this one, we can go into this next photo, which again, taken in kind of somewhat bad, somewhat okay lighting. Is definitely indoor lighting for sure. And bird's eye view, couldn't really tell anything crazy. Zooming in, again, I just don't see any differences. Like I mentioned, I always like seeing bigger differences. If there were differences, I would 100% mention them. But the only thing I can even kind of see is if you kind of zoom into this little portion here, if I zoom into this portion here, it kind of looks to me that that bulb right there in the center, maybe looks a little bit less, I guess less dusty as this one. I think that's the best way to put it. You can also see that with this little strand of, I think, string or whatever this is, it looks to me that, it's a little bit easier to see on the iPhone SE 3. But the question you have to ask yourself is, are you going to be zooming in this much to see these big differences? And I don't think most people will probably end up being in that situation. Now, this next photo, one of my favorite photos, like I mentioned, I just like taking it of this brick wall and this subject in the center. And even here, I just can't really tell that big of a difference. I zoom in here and I zoom in here, and I get the same exact vibe between both. Now, with something like the iPhone SE 3, I think maybe I just don't see a big difference at all. They look almost identically the same. And because they have the same exact camera setup, typically when you go closer to something like an iPhone 12 or iPhone 11, something with an ultra wide sensor, it may automatically adapt to that iPhone, ultra wide sensor. In this case, same exact thing. I don't really notice that big of a difference. If we zoom into the center right here, if we zoom to the center here, I don't really notice that big of a difference either. I mean, if anything, it looks to me that, actually it's the edging may be a little bit better on the iPhone SE 3. So this may be a little bit of an advantage. Something with the A15 Bionic may be giving the impression that it's a little bit of, doing some over sharpening, which is good in some cases, but it's very rare. Like, you have to zoom in a lot to see that. Now, this next photo, again, taken outside, nothing crazy. From a bird's eye view, in my opinion, it kind of looks like the SE3's photo is a little bit better. I guess if you zoom in here and if you zoom in here, one thing that I'm seeing is that with the lines embedded within whatever the siding of this place is, it looks to me that it could potentially be a little bit better looking on something like the iPhone SE3. But again, you have to zoom in a lot. So I don't think a lot of people will be zooming into their photos at this amount to just see these differences, to be honest. So again, nothing crazy here. This next photo was of this green thing, and weirdly enough, immediately, it kind of looks to me that the iPhone SE2 photo may look a little bit better here. Like, it's kind of weird. It looks like there's some filtering going on with this type of photo, and especially with the leaves right here. If I zoom into the leaves here, and again, I tap to focus on the same spot, it kind of looks to me that the coloring looks a little bit better on the iPhone SE3. Very, very similar though across the board. It does look like there's a little bit of, I guess, sharpening going on here too, so this one looks pretty good here. But again, they look almost identical, so there's really not a big difference here in my opinion. And I don't know why I'm getting this spinning wheel now. Now finally, we do have this last photo is just of portrait mode on both. Now neither one of these, cameras, so there really wasn't really even that big of a difference here. They're almost identically the same photo, so you're not really going to be noticing a big difference here either. If we look at the pause, for example, again, you're probably not going to be noticing a big difference because for the most part, they both cannot support, portrait mode on animals. So that's kind of a disadvantage for both as well. And that was one thing where I was surprised that Apple didn't actually take the initiative of improving on the next generation of phones. So on the iPhone SE3, they could have easily supported this feature. Unfortunately, they did not. So there really isn't much we can even do in that situation either. But everything else looks to be about the same. The coloring looks the same. Again, like, if I could just sum up this whole entire video right now, I would totally say that the iPhone SE3 camera is identical to the iPhone SE2 camera. They are almost identically the same. The cameras really are only, the only improvements that could have happened are with the internals, with the chipset inside and everything that's been updated there. Other than that, they're almost exactly the same, which isn't a problem. But I think in this day and age, I mean, this camera was kind of the same as the SE2, which was kind of the same as the iPhone 8 from 2017. So when Apple is still selling a phone like this that they increased the price with and everything, and we're still stuck in a situation like this, it's kind of a different type of scenario. So what I will tell you is that even a phone like an iPhone 11 can give you a better experience than the iPhone SE3. Even an iPhone like an iPhone 10 can give you a better experience than the iPhone SE3. And again, this comes down a lot more than just the amount of sensors and everything, but it is very strange that there's been very few improvements in the pretty much anything camera related on the iPhone SE3 in my opinion. So in terms of that kind of covers it up. If you have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.